Use this video to create a foldable for your notebook to help you solve two-step equations. You'll need your notebook, scissors, a glue stick, and the green foldable. Alright, your first step is to cut the bottom off here on this dotted line if it has not already been done for you. Once you do that, you're going to take this and fold it in. Make sure you fold it so you can still read the words down here, solving two-step equations. And then we're going to cut the dotted lines, only cut the top. Make sure you're not cutting this piece. So let's make two cuts. Okay, so let's start with the top one. 4x plus 3 equals 15. These are two-step equations, which means you're going to have to do two things, two steps. So let's take a look over here. First thing we're going to do is draw our line. Now, I have two things on this side. My goal is to get the variable, which is the letter, by itself. So, I'm going to be working on this side, the side with the letter. This is going to be my last thing to do, so I'm going to circle it. I can't touch that 4x yet. My first step needs to talk about what did I do to the x. And I'm not worried about the 4 yet, I'm just looking at this piece. So I added a 3 to this 4x. So how do I undo adding a 3? I subtract a 3. Okay? These are opposites, positive 3 and negative 3. Positive 3 minus 3, that is a 0. It cancels out, which leaves me with this 4x. So this comes down. 15 minus 3 is a 12. And now we're back to a one-step equation, which we've spent the past week working on. So now I ask myself again, I want this x by itself. So what did I do to the x? I multiplied it by 4. So how do I undo multiplying by 4? I divide by 4. Both sides. Remember, whatever you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other. 4 divided by 4, that becomes a 1, and it cancels out, leaving me with that plain old x. And remember, x and 1x are the exact same thing. This is still a 1x, I just don't have to write the 1. I can, but I don't have to. 12 divided by 4 is a 3. And then our last step is to check it. So to check this, I think that 4 times whatever I got for x, if I add 3 to that, this should give me a 15. I think x is a 3, so I'm going to plug that in there. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 plus 3 is 15. And it matches. And again, you need to type this piece right here in the calculator. Do not just write 15 equals 15, because if you got this wrong, I'm going to know right away that you didn't check it, you just wrote numbers down. When you type that in the calculator, you should get a 15. Alright, let's try this side. Negative 5x plus 10 equals 75, so let's start with drawing our line. I'm going to circle this. I don't want to touch it yet. There's my variable. So that's the side I'm working on. So what did I do to this negative 5x? Well, I added 10, and I need to undo that by subtracting 10. Opposite numbers, 10 minus 10, that's a 0. It goes away, and it leaves me with just this on this side, so I'm going to bring that down. And 75 minus 10 is a positive 65. Okay, now I can circle just the x is what I'm looking for. What did I do to the x? I multiplied it by a negative 5. How do I undo multiplying by negative 5? I divide by negative 5. Negative 5 divided by negative 5, that cancels out, leaves me with a 1, leaving me with my plain old x. And 65 divided by a negative 5, positive divided by a negative, is a negative 13. So I think x is a negative 13, and I can check that. So I think that negative 5 times whatever I came up with for x plus 10 should give me 75. And I think my x value is a negative 13. And again, I'm going to put it right in the calculator. So I'm going to type negative 5 times negative 13 plus 10. And that better give me a 75, otherwise I got it wrong. And it did. So this whole side equals a 75, so does this one. And I know I'm right, I can move on, I don't need to worry about if I got credit for that or not. Okay, so let's try this one. X over 4 minus 3 equals 7. Let's draw the line. And let's circle the piece with the x that I don't want to touch yet. So what did I do to this? I subtracted 3. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides. Opposites, negative 3 plus 3. If you type that in your calculator, negative 3 plus 3, it's a 0, cancels. And it leaves me with x over 4 equals 7 plus 3 is 10. And this is where I told you the easiest way to do this is make this a fraction and then do the butterfly wings. Okay, it doesn't matter which you do first. I like to have the x on this side, so I'm going to do the x times 1 is a 1x, and remember 1x is the same as x. We just didn't write the 1 up here. And 4 times 10 is 40. So I think my x value is a 40. You do not need to divide both sides by 1. You'll end up with x equals 40, which is exactly what this says. So let's do our check. I think whatever I got for x, if I divide it by 4 and subtract 3, should give me a 7. And I got a 40 for the x. So let's put that in the calculator. 40 divided by 4. Make sure you step off that fraction. Minus 3 gave me 7. Is that what I wanted? Yes. 7 equals 7, and I know I am correct. All right, let's try this one. Again, circle the piece with the x. We're not going to touch that yet, but it tells me what side I need to work on. Let's draw a line. What did I do to this x value? I added 9. How do I undo adding 9? I subtract 9. Okay, 9 minus 9 is a 0. That leaves me with an x divided by negative 3. Negative 4 minus 9 is a negative 13. And again, I'm going to make that a fraction. And we will cross multiply. I'm going to draw my butterfly wings. I'm going to do the x piece first. X times 1 is 1x. And again, if you remember, I don't need to write the 1 there. And negative 3 times a negative 13, I'm going to use my calculator to make sure I get it right, is a positive 39. So I think x is a 39, and let's check it. Whatever I got for x, if I divide that by a negative 3 and then add 9, I should wind up with a negative 4. And I think x is a 39. And let's type this in the calculator. So, 39 over negative 3, step off of that, plus 9, and that gave me a negative 4. Is that what I wanted? Yes. So I know that I got it right. All right, last example. These ones are a little bit different. And we are going to make this a fraction, and then we're going to cross multiply. But it's going to look a little different. Notice I have a binomial up here, 2 pieces. Anytime I have more than just one variable or one number that I am cross multiplying with, I need to put this in parentheses. So I am going to have 1 times x plus 3 equals, again let's draw our line, 4 times 7 is 28. And this is where I need to distribute. So I'm going to have 1 times my 1x plus 3. 1 times 1 is 1x. 1 times 3 is a positive 3. So I'm going to pull the inside out and copy it right down here. So this becomes 1x plus 3 equals 28. And if you notice, I'm back to a two-step equation. I'm actually back to a one-step equation. Circle this, tells me what side to work on, the side with the circle. What did I do to this x? I added 3. How do I undo and add 3? I subtract 3. And whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. 3 minus 3, that's a 0. It cancels out, leaving me with that 1x. And remember, 1x and x are the same thing. 28 minus 3 is a 25. So I think that x is a 25. So I'm going to check it. So, whatever my x value is, plus 3 divided by 4 should give me a 7. Okay, we think our x is 25. That's where that came from. So, 25 plus 3, and I'm going to divide that by a 4. It gave me a 7. So I know that I got that right. All right, let's do one more example. Last one. Again, I'm going to put this over 1 to make it a fraction, and I'm going to cross multiply. Because I have two pieces, this is a binomial. Bi means 2. I am going to put parentheses around that and draw the line. So I have 1 times x minus 2, and we've already practiced distributing. Negative 7 times a positive 3 is a negative 21. Okay, I am going to multiply 1 times 1x minus 2. 1 times 1 is 1, bring down the x. 1 times a negative 2 is a negative 2. And we pull out what is inside these boxes. Hopefully you remember this. We spent some time on this before Christmas. So I have here a 1x minus 2 equals negative 21. And remember, these are two-step equations. So there's my first step. I have one step left. I'm still looking for what I did to the x. I subtracted a 2. The opposite of subtracting 2 is adding 2. And whatever you do to one side, you need to do to the other. Those go to a 0 and cancel out, leaving me with a 1x. Negative 21 plus 2. Please use your calculator. Those negatives mess us up. Negative 21 plus 2 is a negative 19. And let's check to make sure we're right. I have my x value, which I think is a negative 19, minus 2. All over a negative 7, and I'm hoping if I put that in the calculator it will give me a 3. So, negative 19 minus 2 all over a negative 7. It did, it gave me a 3, so I know I got my answer right. Okay, the next video you see will be your practice page. I need to see all of this work, and I need to see the check. Okay? The answer is the least part of this problem. How you got there and if you checked it are what I am specifically looking for. All right, read what it says in Google Classroom to see what page to glue this on in your notebook, and you will see a picture of the updated table of contents as well as a picture of the page from your notebook with this glued down and a title.